And let's get into this and see if I can figure out. Okay, I can use this. Um, so if you just noticed in April's thing, I always thought it was funny that this mushroom, which Thomas Koschmeyer submitted, which he found at the Needwood for a couple of weeks ago. Um, it's this lovely mushroom, but we call it chicken of the woods, and if you abbreviate it, it's cow. So I had a cow dinner last night, but anyway, I always thought, but it's really chicken, but no, it's actually a mushroom. Um, anyway, this is Laetiporus sulphureus. These are wood decomposers. They cause a brown rot, as you can see in this dark brown, dark log. Um, the sulphureus version tends to be a little oranger on top. You'll see that it has this yellow leading edge, and the underside, the gills or the pores are actually quite sulfur yellow as well, unless it's starting to get a little older. This is a tasty mushroom. There are a few people that it can upset your stomach. Um, so just if you're trying it for the first time, make sure to only try a small portion. I used to eat it and then it started affecting me, and so I stopped. But I did like this one. Um, Speaking of, Roberta Gartside found this at the Swamp Trail in Great Falls Park, and it may look weird from that angle, but if you look at this one, you'll say, oh, that looks very similar to the one we just saw. Well, it is. This is actually another chicken. This is just Laetiporus cincinnatus. So you can call it the pale chicken, the apricot chicken. I don't know. But you'll see this doesn't have that sulfur color. It has a whitish tan color, and the pores on the underside, same thing. Um, Also very tasty. The chicken of the woods are a relatively safe mushroom once you learn what you're looking for. Um, because nothing really looks like them, but you do need to learn a little bit, because I had somebody send me a picture of some jack-o'-lanterns one time, and just because they were orange, they were like, is this chicken? And it's like, did you look at the underside? It's got like very distinct gills. And so no, that's not chicken. So a little bit of knowledge can help certainly get you out of upsetting your stomach, getting sick. So anyway, this one typically grows at the base of trees instead of directly from the wood, oftentimes in like a little rosette form. Um, and they say that this one is tender even further down the stipe. The sulphureus, when it's getting a little bit older, a lot of times you'll want to kind of cut that leading edge off if you're planning on eating it, because it gets really tough at the base. All right, another polypore. Actually, Milton actually submitted this one. He found this one a while ago, but I don't know if he recently posted it on INAT, or maybe he had an old posting, and he was getting some people that decided, hey, this isn't Fistulina hepatica, which is what we were calling it. This is the beefsteak fungi. Um, and due to DNA evidence, they've realized that the beefsteak we find here is distinct from, I suppose that was in Europe. Anyway, so it's not hepatica here. It's actually now Fistulina americana. It's still the same mushroom. Um, Really cool one to find. It is a polypore, so it's growing directly from the wood. One cool thing about this one is the pores are not fused, such as in other regular polypores or boletes and things like that. They are actually separate. You can kind of see them separating a little bit here. The picture, I couldn't really zoom into it very much. But it's essentially a bunch of little straws hanging right next to each other. And that's where your spores are produced. And you can see when you cut it, it actually has this almost marbled looking texture to it. Some people love this mushroom. This is one of the few that they say you can eat it raw if you'd like. It's not going to mess with you. It's quite tart. Um, I'm not a big fan. I say it has a polypore taste. And if you've ever like grabbed a piece of turkey tail and just chewed on it, it has kind of a taste that's particular to this mushroom. And I've actually tasted it in Hen of the Woods one time. So I kind of associate that taste with polypores now. But anyway, that's why I'm not a big fan of that one. But some people, I think there was somebody in the club, this was her favorite. Ah, this one was submitted by Tom Moore. Oop, I didn't write down where you found it. But this is a really cool one, at least I think it is. Did you happen to get back there and give it a smell?
Hey, Mitch, I actually looked for it. I couldn't find it.
Ah, okay.
But I think I know where I missed it, so I'll go back.
Okay. I mean,
But
if you're out there,
but it was totally cool. I didn't realize until I got home from looking at the photo that it was toothed because I assumed it
hmm
was a polypore.
yeah, it's still kind of a polypore or a crust or something. It's in the Stechorinaceae. And the Stechorhinums kind of have like they're kind of crusty with some teeth on them. But yeah, so this one's shelving out like a polypore. It's got teeth. There's a kind of a version of this or a species of this that instead of having teeth, it has pores. And I think that one's called fragrans. And this one is reniformis, so Metuloidea reniformis. At least I think that's what this is. Really getting a smell of it would um would really tell me if that's really what it is. You'll notice I made up a I made up a name for it because it smells like red hots. It smells like cinnamon. And it happens to have teeth. So but anyway, if you do find a little brown, nondescript little fungi out in the woods, don't forget to try and give it a smell, and you might be surprised. Um, Tom also found this guy. Beautiful pictures, by the way, Tom. Really nice. Um, uh, beautiful. A lot of times this one can be much paler on top. Um, it's hard to tell, but because I know what this mushroom is, I suspect this is an old fallen pine log, some sort of conifer, because these tend to prefer growing on conifer wood. You'll see when you look at the underside, it's got these forking gills. And so they're also decurrent, so they run down the stipe. Um, with that orangish color, some people would confuse this for a chanterelle if you're not familiar with what chanterelles look like. And so this is the false chanterelle. This is Hygrophilopsis aurantiaca. Um, apparently it has some sort of toxin in it, so it's not recommended to eat these. I don't think it's like really, really bad. It's not like an amatoxin or anything like that. But um, the gills can be kind of confusing on these. So chanterelles tend to, well, the ones we have in our area, the smooth chanterelles tend to be much less um, pro, pro, predominant gills, like hanging down. They're much smoother. Sibarius type chanterelles do have ridges that hang down that can look very much like gills. Um, and we always tell people, or at least I do, if you're checking to make sure if it doesn't have knife-edged gills. Problem is, this one sometimes when it's young can almost have rounded looking gill edges as well. So I can see how it may confuse some people, especially if you're in an area that has a lot of the Sibarius type. Whereas here, most of the chanterelles we find are the smooth type, the Cantharellus lateritius, which they may have changed that name now, so I'm probably using an old name. But anyway, beautiful mushroom, beautiful pictures. Connie submitted this one. I'm not sure what to tell her on this one, but I do know it is some sort of Cuprinellus or Cuprinus. It's one of the inky caps. You can see it's growing from mulch, I guess near her crepe myrtles. Um, but you can see it's kind of getting this dark coloration. So it doesn't look like it's deliquescing. Typically, your Cuprinellus, have an enzyme that kind of melt the gills away and the spores drip away. And some of them will dry out. Like Disseminatus is a much smaller version of this. Um, and it's kind of like the non-inky Cuprinus. But there are a number of these Cuprinellus type things that I know for me, it's hard to put my finger on what exactly they are. Um, but they're pretty distinct in how they look. And so once you learn that group, you can kind of like, oh, that looks like a Cuprinus or a Cuprinellus. Those black gills, black spores. All right. April submitted a few, and her email was wrong. She was in Colombia, apparently. That must have been a nice trip. Um, and so I'm not sure if she found those around here, found these mushrooms around here, or found them in Colombia. But this one, she only submitted the bottom. I'm guessing it's Polyporus bromalis. There is a different one that can have a pore surface like this, but it tends to come up in the spring. So like Polyporus arcularis. This would typically be brownish on the top and a little bit of fuzzy. And then this guy over here is actually not a fungi. That is a slime mold. And you can see that there are more mature versions of it here. And so these are the sporulating structures. And as they dry out and the spores mature, they turn into these little brown. So they started off as these little orange insect eggs. So this is Leocarpus fragilis, insect egg slime. At least I think that's what that is. All right. I'm guessing maybe she got this one in Colombia. Um, but I don't even know what to put on this. So if any, April, did you happen to dig into the books and try and figure out what this may be if you're still around? Anyway, it might be some sort of mycena. I don't know what it was growing on. It looks like there was some conifer nearby. Um, Whatever this underbrush, these little liverworts or whatever, or mosses were really cool in the picture. But I wasn't sure to tell her what this is. Anyway, on that same note, Roberta Gartside sent this one from the Swamp Trail in Great Falls Park, and it looks like something I think I it looks like a trichomopsis to me. They tend to have um, like markings on the cap, like here, little fibrils on the cap, yellow, like something like Trichomopsis decora. But they are typically a little bit smaller than this, not as hardy. But if you look at the substrate they're growing in, um, it does kind of look like some old brown rot pine. So maybe because they're also a pine decomposer, a conifer decomposer. And so maybe it was starting to decompose and they were just able to get their nutrients easier with it really starting to break down and just grew bigger. The conditions were right. Or maybe this was from Colombia. Oh no, this is Roberta. that was April's. Anyway, I think this might be Trichomopsis decora. It's pine decomposer. And I got a number of these. Marilyn Mindell submitted these. That's a beautiful picture. Look at that little cluster of spiraceus. So this is some of your cauliflower mushroom. Um, this is Spiraceus spathulata. And so you'll see it has zonations in the fronds of it. There is another type of Spiraceus that can grow to some, and is it doesn't have the zonations, and it almost looks like egg noodles when you see it. But this one tends to be more common around here and under oak trees. So this is if you think about a spatula, so it has spatulate lobes. So this is Spiraceus spatulata. We also found a couple more. Thomas Koschmider submitted this one, and Thomas Moore submitted this one. Look at this monster; it's just beautiful. I mean, look. Usually, when you find these Spiraceus, they're not very pristine, and it seems like they really came up quick, and not many insects, not leaves falling all over it, and all that kind of stuff. And I've had other people that have sent me texts and things like that. Hey, is this a cauliflower? So they're having a really good year. All right, Daniel Berman sent this, and he was kind of thought it was odd. This guy growing from a tree. Usually, when you see these, they're growing from some mulch in a flower bed or something. This is Leucoagaricus americanus, the American parasol. It has very distinct features is when you cut it, and you can kind of see a little bit of yellowing right here on this one. But when you cut it, it stains to yellow. and then it eventually stains to this dark reddish brown. Um, when I first found this, I started cutting it, and I was relatively new, and I knew it was the reddening Lepiota, and I was like, oh, that's what this is. And I started cutting it, and it went yellow, and I'm like, oh my God, this is wrong. This is what is this? So but then you learn a little more, and you're like, oh, so that's actually what happens. It actually goes from yellow to the red. Um, it is an edible. I ate them that time, and to me, they were not that good. It could have been how I cooked them though. But typically you'll find these in huge clusters in mulch. Not every now and then you'll find them growing on some trees like they want to live in the woods. And don't confuse them for these guys. So Thomas submitted these, um, growing in a fairy ring in someone's yard. These are getting a little older. They can be, very much whiter than this. He didn't get a shot of the underside, but if you were to see the underside, it would, at this point, probably be dark green. This is your Chlorophyllum molybdites. This is the mushroom that poisons more people in America than any other mushroom. It doesn't kill you, but you'd wish you were dead. They'd be coming out both ends. It's not pleasant. There's a small portion of people that it doesn't affect, but who wants to figure out if you're one of those people? So yeah, be careful with these big, beautiful white mushrooms. They have a ring on the stem. And if you take a spore print, it'll be going greenish. And you got this one, and do not eat it. And someone sent me this. I think Jim might have sent me this. Oak Spring Garden Foundation had some sort of thing called Marvelous Mushrooms, and it featured some female mycologists from the past. I thought it was a nice picture. And if you go to their site, I think they still have some information. I'm not sure if it's actually a display or anything, but anyway, thanks. And hopefully we're going to get some rain and have more pictures. And so maybe the next time I do this, we'll have a number of mushrooms to include.